Up to now, we have discussed the liabilities of the partnership firm and liability of the partners to the outside third parties. Now, we come to the next topic, that is the reconstitution of partnership firm. That means when there is any change in the constitution of the firm, so we say it is a reconstitution of the partnership firm. Under the reconstitution, we will discuss the five heads, that is section 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35, which are regarding the admission of a partner, retirement of a partner, expulsion of a partner, insolvency of a partner, and death of a partner. Let's start with the admission of a partner. When any person is being entered into an existing firm, when any partner is being admitted into an existing firm, this is being called as the admission of the partner. This coming partner is also known as this admission is known as the known as incoming partner. Only when the all partners, all the existing partners are ready, have consented to make a person a partner in the partnership firm, only then that partner can be entered into the partnership firm. Because the partners who are already there, they have a relationship of trust and confidence, and when any person is being entered into a partnership firm, there is a danger to that trust and confidence. So upon a particular person, if all the partners can give the consent, means all the partners can show their trust and confidence, only then a partner can be admitted to an existing firm, and that such partner is known as the incoming partner. So when the new partner is being admitted, that can be admitted by the following ways. One is with the consent of all the partners. As I have already said, there is a relationship between the partners of trust and confidence. So with the consent of all the partners, the new partner can be admitted, or in accordance with the contract already entered into between the partners. That means if when the partnership deed was made, there was an agreement that whenever a new partner is to be admitted, there is no need to take the consent, any person can be admitted, or a certain person would be added, yeah, entered into the partnership firm after 5 years. So if such kind of agreement is there in the partnership deed, so now the consent of all the partners is not required, and a person can be admitted into the partnership business. Let's see the example. A partnership agreement between A and B contained a clause that they would have the right to bring his son C into partnership on attaining the age of 21 years. When C attained the age of 21 years, B refused to accept him as a partner. It was held that B could not do so, as the partnership agreement operated as a contract according to which new partner was admitted. That means a new partner was admitted according to the agreement which was being done priorly, and according to that, C is to be entered into the business on attaining of age of 21 year, and now B cannot refuse that he cannot be the partner of the firm. Partnership agreement may also empower certain partners to nominate a new partner. When the partnership agreement is being done, partnership deed is being done. So, in that case, it may also empower that a partner, an existing partner, can nominate any other person as a new partner. Even this provision can be added. Where such nominated partners is not acceptable to all other partners, they cannot be enforced to enter into partnership with him. But here the case is different. When there was a prior agreement with a particular person, it was the enforcement on other partners to make him enter into the partnership firm. But when such nomination is being given by any person, and that nomination is not acceptable to all other partners, so that partner cannot be entered as a new partner into the existing firm. So, when a new partner is being entered into a partnership firm, it has a few liabilities. One, liability for the acts of the firm done before admission. Means that all the acts which was done before the admission of a new partner, for all those acts, an incoming partner cannot be held liable. Let's see the example. A and B were partners in a firm. C was the creditor of the firm. After some time, D, a new partner, was admitted into the firm. In this case, they will not be liable to make payment of the debt due to C because D has entered later on and C was the creditor of the firm and the transaction was done before the entering of the D into the partnership firm. So, in this case, D cannot be held liable. But an incoming partner can be held liable in the following conditions. One, the reconstituted firm has assumed the liability for past debts of the old firm. When there was a reconstitution of the partnership firm, the new partnership firm has made an agreement that they are liable for the past debts of the old partnership. So in that case, if such kind of agreement is there, the new constituted firm would be liable for the debts of the old firm, and the creditors were also informed about the new agreement. So when all these conditions are being satisfied, a newly entered partner can be held liable for the past debts of the firm. Liability for the acts of the firm done after admission. Once the partner is being admitted, he must be liable for the acts done by the firm. He would be liable he would be liable for all the acts which the firm has done after the admission of that particular partner. Let's see the example. A and B were partners in a firm. After some time, C, a new partner, was admitted into the firm. Thereafter, the reconstituted firm purchased some raw material from D on credit. So, in this case, C along with A and B would also be liable to D for the price of the raw material. That means he is now a regular partner of the firm, and any transaction which is being done after the entrance of that partner, that means that is a usual affair of the company, and all the partners would be held liable for that particular activity. Next, retirement of a partner. In second part, we are going to discuss. Section 232 defines that a partner may retire when all the partners are willing that one person can retire, or where there is an express agreement by the partners that any person can be retired at any time, or by giving notice in writing to all the partners that a particular partner wants to retire. In short, when a person wants to retire, that can be retired by the consent of all, by an express agreement, or by giving the notice to all the other partners that a particular person wants to get retire. So let's see the case. In case of Vishnu Chandra versus Chandrika Agrawal, the Supreme Court has held that an agreement which permitted a partner to retire by 1 month notice was valid. So means in this case, if any person wants to retire from a firm, a 1 month notice is okay. Means by giving the 1 month notice, a partner can retire from the firm anytime. So in a two-member firm, there is no question of retirement because for the partnership, two members are always required. But where there are only two members into a partnership firm and the retirement of one person will make the firm into the dissolution, so in that case, there is no retirement of a partner when there are only two members into a firm. Now, what is the liability of the retiring partner? As we know, once the person is retired, any act done before his retirement, the person would remain liable, and he would be liable up to that date up to which he was the member of the partnership firm. He was the partner in the partnership firm, and once he is being retired, and after his retirement, if any act is being done, he is not responsible. Let's see the example. A, B, and C were partners in a firm. D was the creditor of the firm. After some time, A retired from the firm, but B and C carried on the business of the firm even after A's retirement. In this case, A along with B and C remains liable to make payment of the debt to D because the D has become the creditor when A was the member of the partnership firm, means this activity was done before the retirement of Mr. A. So that means any debt due to D would be paid by the three partners, that is A, B, and C. Liability for the acts of the firm done after retirement. Means once the partner has been retired, and if any act is being done by the partners after the retirement of that person, so in this case the partner who is going to retire has to give the public notice of his retirement. If such a notice is being not given, in that case that person would remain liable even after the retirement for the acts of the firm. But there is an exception in case of sleeping partner. A sleeping partner would not be made liable for the acts of the firm even he do not give the public notice of his retirement. Let's discuss the case of Glorious Plastic Company versus Legate Enterprises. The Bombay High Court has held that where the existence of a retiring partner was not known, he cannot be held liable for the debts incurred by the firm after his retirement, even if public notice of his retirement was not given. So that means if any person who was the partner of the partnership firm and was not known to the public, means if the person was a sleeping partner, the person was not known to the public, in that case there is no need of giving the retirement notice. But in case of active partners, the notice regarding the retirement is the must. Now, the rights of a retiring partner: right to carry on competing business. The retiring partner can start a new business, the competing business. Even the retiring partner can start a new business to the next door of the reconstituted firm. Nobody can stop him. And he may also advertise for such business because he is opening a new business. He is not now the part of the partnership firm. Nobody can stop him for advertising. The interest of the reconstituted firm should be protected. So, for that reason, a certain restrictions can be imposed on the retiring partner. One, he would not use the name of the firm because the partner is not now the member of the partnership firm, partner of the partnership firm. So, he would not use the name of the firm. He cannot represent that he is carrying on the business of the firm. He cannot solicit the existing customers of the firm. So all these conditions, all these restrictions can be imposed by a reconstituted firm on the retiring partner. Second right is right to share subsequent profits. If any act was done before the retirement of the partner and the result of that act is in the form of the profits, so that means that subsequent profits is the right of the retiring partner. He has the right on them and he can claim them. On retirement, it is a duty of the remaining partners that they should settle the accounts with the retiring partners. And in case they do not settle the account, the retiring partner can exercise either of the following rights. Means in case of default made by the reconstituted partners of the reconstituted partnership firm, the retiring partner has a few rights. One, he may receive interest at the rate of 6% per annum on the amount of his share in the property of the firm, or he may demand such share of profit as may be attributable to the use of his share of property of the firm. He has the right on the subsequent share of the profits. Third point to discuss is the expulsion of a partner. Normally, a partner cannot be expelled from the partnership firm. The other partners don't have a right to expel any partner, but it can be done in some exceptional cases by following a prescribed procedure. Section 33, subsection 1 of Indian Partnership Act defines that a partner may not be expelled from a firm by any majority of the partner save in the exercise in good faith of powers conferred by a contract between the partner. Say if the majority of the partners wants that any partner must be expelled from the partnership firm, even they don't have that right. A partner can be expelled only if the following conditions would be satisfied. One, there is an express contract between the partners. That means when the partnership deed was made, there was an express contract between the partners that with the majority or with the voting power, a partner may be expelled from the firm. Only then it can be done. Power of expulsion should be exercised by majority of partners, in that case only when there is an express contract, and should be exercised in absolute good faith. That means the express contract would be applicable only when the majority of the partners are expelling to another partner only in the good faith. That means they are doing for the benefit of the firm, not for their personal reasons. Next point is the insolvency of the partner. Section 34, subsection 1 defines that when a partner in a firm is adjudicated and insolvent, he ceases to be a partner on that day. That means from the day when the partner is being adjudicated as insolvent, he would be out of the partnership firm. He cannot be held liable for the activities of the firm done by the firm after that particular date. So let's complete the definition. When a partner in a firm is adjudicated as insolvent, he ceases to be a partner on the date on which the order of adjudication is made, whether or not the firm is thereby dissolved. Means one partner is being declared as insolvent, the other partners may continue with the partnership firm. There is no necessity that partnership firm should be dissolved. So the firm in that case is automatically dissolved if there due to insolvency in contract of contrary. If such kind of express contract is there, that means if one person gets insolvent, the firm would be dissolved, then it is there. But otherwise, in contract of contrary, the firm need not to be dissolute. But where the firm is not dissolved, the effect of insolvency would be there, which would be as the estate of insolvent partner is not liable for the acts of the firm done after the insolvency of the partner. Means once the partner is insolvent, he would not be liable for the acts of the firm, and the firm would also not be liable for the acts done by the insolvent partner, even under the implied authority done after the date of the insolvency. Reason being, he would not be the partner of the partnership firm from the date of the insolvency. The last point in the reconstitution is the death of the partner. When there is a death of a partner, the other partners may opt for dissolution of the firm. But when they opt for continuing of the partnership firm, there must be some reconstitution in the firm's partnership deed. So, in contract to contrary, when there is a death of partner, the firm would stand automatically dissolved. But when the firm is not dissolved, but the estate of deceased partner would never be liable for the acts of the firm done by the firm after the death of the partner. And in that case, even the public notice regarding the death of any partner is not necessary. The estate of the deceased partner or the legal representatives of the deceased partner would not be held liable for any act done by the firm after the date of the death of a partner.